Hey everybody, it's Matthew Lee with the Tao of Kung Fu. Today's video is going to be about basic kicks and how you want to get started and good alignment, good body mechanics and movement with those. So I've got 3 kicks to introduce and give you my 2 cents on them. Kicks are really important to learn well and to have down very, very good for a lot of factors. Number 1, your leg is bigger than your arm, so it's less susceptible to injury. It's much better protected than the arm. It weighs a lot more. It's also going to be more powerful, which makes it more effective. But often in fights, kicks are very, very misused. I see them in sparring and things like that, and they're misused. If you look at the way when you engage opponent, then I call that the entrance, how you enter into the battle with the opponent. Whether you're sparring or fighting or doing a sport competition or anything like that, you have to go into the entrance. So the entrance, a lot of times kicks work well, but people misuse them. They do too high of the height range, or they do too flashy of a kick. They telegraph it. They're basically just not smart and not good about how they're introducing themselves into the fight. So when you walk in the door, you walk into the entrance, you go, I am the greatest and I'm so flashy, look at this, and everybody looks at you and they go, yeah, right, I don't think so. So the way you enter is very important into a confrontation because it sets the pace for how that person is going to respect you. Now, if you come in and you're in like a sparring situation, you can be a little bit more creative and not be quite as on the ball as you need to be in like a real fight. You can't make a mistake. So in a sparring situation, you can be a lot more playful and creative, and you can make your mistakes. That's what sparring is for, is learning all of that and getting very used to it so that in a real confrontation you know, oh, don't do a spinning, jumping smash kick to the head from 8 feet away and try to show off and do all of this. You're just setting yourself up for a loss. After you've engaged with an opponent, then when you break away and you guys step back from each other, or gals, then I call that the exit. So the exit is very important as well because if you land a good kick and then stop and you use that as your exit, you're going to give your partner a break to recuperate, reset their stance, rethink their strategy and their concepts, and then it's like starting all over again. You have to run all the way back around and come back in through the entrance. So a lot of times I see in fights and in sports competitions, people exiting much too soon, not knowing like when to close. Like in boxing, they call that a closer. You get the person rocked or you get them upset and off their game and frustrated, but then you step back and you take a breather and you kind of admire your work or whatever, and the opponent recuperates and they put together a new game plan. It allows them time to adapt and to think and to readjust, and then they may come at you with something and may finish. Exit is very important too. You can't exit too soon. Like in a movie theater, you go, oh, this movie was great, and you get up and walk out before the resolution, and you miss the big climactic part of the movie. Then, or you can stay much too long and not recognize when it's time to leave, and the usher has to come up to you and be like, sir, you've been here for half an hour, there isn't even credits rolling anymore, the next movie's about to start, you're going to have to go. And you're like, oh, I had no clue. So you can't stay too long either. You've got to get out and recognize that your combination for the moment did its job, you wore the person down a little bit, or whatever, and then it's time to get out, reset, and start something new. Either repeat or start something new. Now, everything in the middle I call the maze. You enter the maze, you go through the maze, and you get out of the maze. In the maze, you can get locked in dead ends, or you can just keep flowing. You never know what's coming around the corner, and you just have to go on intuition, right? And the more and more you practice, the better you get, and your intuition gets strong. You can adapt and figure out what happens. You can stop way before you see a dead end, and you can get around. They must be doing some jiu-jitsu in the yoga studio upstairs. All right, so on to some basic kicks. Let's check these out. So we've already warmed up and loosened. We've got blood flow, we've got stretch and flexibility, we've got a little bit of sweat going. So even in San Francisco, I thought it was impossible to sweat because it's cold here. But nope, it's not. You can totally sweat here. It works great. So we're going to work on our kicks. So the first thing about kicks is you want to start out in a good stance. And that means your knees are bent. That gives you the ability to sink and take impact, to move and yield, to be real flexible with where you can put your movement. And so that's very important. Plus, if you're springy and you're ready to go, you can move really quick with your kicks. It's important to have control of your stepping when you do your kicks. So a lot of times I teach people to raise the knee up to the elbow, keep the hands high, and the elbows in. You don't want to have the elbows out chicken wings, because another person kicking or hook punching can get into your ribs. Where here, if they come into the ribs, you can drop your elbow real quick and block with those elbows. Block with the forearms into the center line. So that works really good. And then I teach them raise the knee up to the elbow and drop. So everything kind of crunches in and then opens back up. So it crunches in and opens back up, and you're right here. Same thing with the rear leg. You don't have to do it near as frequently with the rear leg, but it works, and it starts to get that first motion. So I always warm people up with the first initial motion of knees so that they're getting that connection of the upper and lower body. And that's important because the first movement of a kick, the first major movement of a kick, is raising the knee. And then most kicks hinge out from the knee or piston out from the knee. So these first three basic kicks that I teach are hinging kicks and piston force kicks. So the knee is the first thing. For the front snap kick, the knee is the first thing that raises. So I always start out low and slow, and I teach in portions of movement. So it's knee up, then extend, not quite to where the knee is completely locked out, but a little tiny angle still in the knee. Toes curled back so that we're hitting with the ball of the foot, and just starting about knee high, and then pulling back real fast, and back into our step and adjusting the front foot again so that we're not torquing on the knee. So it's toed in just a little bit. So that first kick is pushing, raising, extending, pulling back, and back. So just like that. So that's with the rear leg, front snap kick. So it's coming straight in the front, and it's going back faster than it's going out. These kicks are going to go here. The hip points first, raise the knee. Now the knee is going to be your aiming point. The hip and the knee are going to decide where the foot hinges out to. So you want to point the knee at the target, not just straight in, but where on the straight line. So if you point the knee lower, the kick is going to be lower. So if you want to hit the solar plexus, you have to point the knee a little bit higher than the solar plexus hinge out and dot the solar plexus. So that's how you work your accuracy with that. So it's up, out, and back. So the second hinging kick is the one from the side, where that's a straight in kick. This one is a round from the side. So it's got a couple of unique actions to it. The first one is similar to a whip, like you're just swinging a whip around, and it's going to trail. So the hip moves first and pulls the leg around. I have my students warm up with a knee across here, just as if you're grabbing your opponent and coming up into their ribs or kidneys, up in here, maybe up into the solar plexus. So grabbing and pulling into a knee there. And that's going to be the first movement of this one. From our good stance, we're going to go open this way. So a little bit of a toe out. And as I do that, I'm also shifting my weight forward, which helps me move the hip and start the action of this kick. So as soon as the leg picks up, it bends, and then I bring the knee around, and then it unhinges. I'm still hitting with the ball of the foot. This time, the foot is flat, horizontal, and I still snap it back twice as fast as I put it out there. And then when I step back, I don't leave the knee vulnerable and exposed here to my torque or my partner's kick. And so I pull it back into my good, solid stance. So this is going to come around, toe out, shift the weight, come around, kick with the ball of the foot, snap it back to a good stance. Toe out, shift the weight, come up and across, hit, pull back, set the stance. Now I know a lot of my students have difficulty with this because their hips are kind of bound up to start off with. So beginners really frequently struggle with this roundhouse. So the first thing, of course, I tell them is no need to be kicking head high. That's not necessarily a realistic use of them other than just conditioning anyways. So most of the time, 80% of the time, these kicks are used for the knees and the legs. So for starters, just come in and kick to the shin, using your shin rather, or thinking about maybe the ball of your foot to their knee. So just coming across knee high and back will work really good. And then you want to work hip opening exercises and get your hips unbound and relaxed so that you can progress into the kick a little bit more as it gets more and more advanced. The third kick that I teach for the basics is a side thrust, which is a really good kick, really important kick. A lot of times people do these incorrectly because, number one, they don't have their structure accurate, and number two, they're not relaxed enough and they try to hit with a lot of force, so they're over-trying it and not having a good understanding of the actual technique. The big thing that I see with the side thrust, it's like a stomp. That's how you think of the side thrust. I tell my students, picture like a really big, vicious bug or something like that coming at you, a spider, like the Arachnophobia movie, and you want to stomp. You want to make sure that that poisonous spider that's attacking you is dead the first time. So you don't want to just like, tap and kind of feel it out. You want to like bomb down on it and explode. So it's you explode. So it's a stomp. And for a while, I was addicted to stomping, and I would stomp all the time. And I had a job teaching for a little while in a mall, of all places, and we were on the second story, and I would stomp all the time. And I actually had the manager of the store that was downstairs on the first floor come up and complain because all they heard all day was stomping, which I liked. I thought that was pretty cool. But apparently it really was annoying, which is, That's my life in a nutshell. I think things are really cool, but everybody around me thinks they're annoying. So, if you go and talk to the people upstairs, they probably think me kicking all these weight-bearing poles down here is annoying. I think it's really cool, though. So, the side thrust is going to start very similar to the roundhouse, where we're going to lift the knee first. We're going to toe the foot out. Now, instead of thinking about pulling with the hip, we're not doing that this time, so we can build a different body mechanic. This time, we're coming up and pulling up the leg this way. So, from here, we're going to toe out, and this time we're also toeing out a little further. So we got a little more hip rotation this time. Make sure to get the knee out over the foot. And then we're pulling up this way. So up to here. Okay? Just like if you're grabbing a person on this side and kneeing straight up, but it's a little bit more of an angle. Then we're extending out and pulling back. And then back to our good stance. So that's a rear leg side thrust. So from here, I'm toeing out, lifting, movement 2 is out, and movement 3 is pulling back twice as fast. And then coming back to my good stance. This time, instead of hitting with the ball of the foot, we're focusing on hitting with the heel. And we're slamming that out. We want to get that concept of explosion. And I also am pushing. So one of the things I see wrong with people is that they do this too close, and when they are extending for power here, they end up pushing on this individual, and it ends up pushing them backwards. This pull's perfect because it's like a big 800-pound opponent to me. I'm not ever going to move this pull. If I do, I'm in big trouble because it's a weight-bearing structure thing, and I'm going to collapse the house on myself. So I'm going to try hard not to move the pole. So the first thing is, like in architecture or in physics, you want to have a long line of power. You don't want to have the line of power out this way, where if I extend, I'm back out over here, to where once things are pushing and everything like that, this is where the power is all coming to, and it's going to explode out this direction. That's why you see people kick and then get pushed away, is because all the power that's coming back, the equal and opposite reaction, is pushing back against them, and their rooting is bad because their structure is bad. It's throwing them out this way. What you want is to be out wide and almost reach for this person to where my hips are inside this foot and the kick is coming out that way, and I'm real nice and solid. So even if I push off this person, I'm still coming back to a point where I'm balanced over this leg. So you don't want the hips on this side. You're going to fall over even without pushing or kicking. You want the center of your gravity in between both of your feet. So that's a structural thing. The other thing with it is you want to snap with this side thrust. Even though it's a thrust kick, it still gets snap. What I mean by that is it's going to kick, and then instead of staying on the target and trying to shove through them, it gets that penetration quickly, but then it pulls back. And it gets that quick penetration, and then it escapes and leaves. From here, you're going to raise, pull, and pull back. So it's raising, pull, and back. In, pull. So you want to reach so the hips are out. They're over here, not over here. But even if you make the structural mistake and you are too close to the person and your hips are out past your foot, if you snap, it will still be strong. you can still cause a lot of damage and you won't be out of control. So control is the most important part of this aspect, because once you're out of control, a smart, fast athlete will follow in for the close. Let's review these three, which are the front snap, up, out, and back, up, out, back fast. This can easily turn into a thrust kick, which I also love. Up, and then it thrusts out and pulls back. So that's close to a fourth basic that I teach. When I teach the front snap kick, I teach both of those. The rear roundhouse. And the rear side thrust. You just want to make sure you're breathing with it, stay loose and relaxed, and then keep your hands up, don't let your arms flail all around, and practice those tons. The good technique comes with repetition, so you want to do maybe around 50 to 100 each a day, no less than every other day, and build up your repetition to get them down really well and get coordinated with them. But start slow with very little power. Make sure you've got the great technique first, and that's how you're going to really develop great basic kicks. So good luck with your training, everybody, and I'll see you soon.